Thank you, Kim. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Town of Colonie Zoning Board of Appeals to order on April 21st, 2021. I believe everyone has a copy of the minutes from our April 7th meeting. If you could please take a moment to review them, and we'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Kirk. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Nick, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes are hereby approved. Thank you very much. Our first order of business tonight is the continuance of an adjourned hearing that was initially adjourned, believe it or not, on July 16th of 2020. Ted DeLucia, are you on?
I hope you can hear me.
I heard him.
Ted?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Ted, do you want to provide the board with an overview of what you're looking for tonight, since it's been quite a while since we last took up this matter?
Oh, certainly. I may even have one or two new board members since we previously did this.
Yeah.
So I will go through it. If it's a little lengthy, I apologize, but I just want to make sure everybody is aware of what we're asking for and how we got to where we got to this point. I think, as everyone knows, the Blessings Tavern has been an establishment that was there since the 1950s. And I think it's the second oldest establishment within the town of Colonie. And unfortunately, in 2016, we had a tragic accident there, which caused the building to catch fire and later had to be destroyed. So what transpired was actually at that point, I met with the owner, who I know very well, Liz Altrock. She had previously worked there for 20 some years. She gained ownership in 2001, and everything remained pretty much the same since she took ownership. Prior to that, in the 60s, I did provide some additional information. The original owner, Edward Blessing, went for a variance to install a walk-in cooler and also to expand the parking. And then obviously when Liz took it over, she had to go for a tenant change permit and a couple small minor improvements, which everything was approved. So in doing so, we had to rebuild the building, and we're allowed to do so with the provision within the zoning law. However, we had to increase the footprint of the building to make it comply, if you will. And in order to make it comply with the building code, these are the reasons why we had to increase the footprint. We had to have everything has to be handicapped nowadays, and bathrooms and so on and so forth, and entrances and porch roofs or over entrances, all per the code, the handicap ramp. And so what had happened was we went through that entire process. It required a variance. We received our variance, went through the planning process, and we got approval through the planning process, which was administrative, and we got a permit and built our building. So subsequently, in December, I believe it was 2019, is when she finally reopened, and we found out that there was obviously a lot of interest to the new place, many new faces, because the landscape and the environment of the building definitely had changed, and it was pulling in so many other people from outside the area that have a local establishment. So having said that, subsequently, we noticed that we had struggling with parking. People were parking along the road and so forth. And even though that was happening, the establishment was not full. It was like 30 to 40% empty. People were complaining to the owner, or not complaining, but just saying, I would love to stop in, but there's no parking. Must have been full. No, I wasn't. So at that time, I started to do a little research and said something doesn't seem to add up. And I did find out that the formula within the planning department definitely has to be looked at and adhered to when you're redesigning a building and so on and so forth. So when I looked into that, there is a formula, which I provided copies to the board members, which I hope you got a chance to see. And I know we discussed this on the previous meeting. but I'm just bringing this to everyone's attention now because I think we have a couple new members. So anyway, long story short, there is a formula that's used for every building in the town that is built through the planning process. And it follows whatever use it may be. In our case, it's a restaurant. So when I looked at it, I noticed that we don't have adequate parking for our building for the planning requirement. And we are actually about 13 spaces short of what the requirement is. And that's ironically exactly what we are proposing to the zoning board. I provided a survey previously in our previous meeting, and I also did an attachment just for this meeting too, to show that we would like to add the parking right adjacent to the existing parking, if you will, for the 13 spaces. Thank you, Kim. So you'll see that we have the existing parking as it shows where it says street number 1116, which is always the same as the previous building parking. And then we want to add what you'll see circled out in red there, the additional 13 spots. As I mentioned, again, it's all within the property of the Blessings Tavern. It complies with all the setbacks that are required, the green space, parking lot size, entrance, exit, which we would not be installing any new exits or entrances onto either road. It would just be connecting into the existing parking lot that we have there today. Obviously, we are cognizant of one neighbor who is adjacent to this because Miss Altrock owns the other properties that are connecting to this. And we're proposing a 6-foot high vinyl fence to border the whole property line that faces the adjacent neighbor on Consol Road. That's Consol Road. And as well as bringing it down on Consol Road all the way down to, well, as far as we can. We probably will bring it down to where it says parking space number 13. Oh, you'll see it there. I apologize. It goes further than that. In doing so, we are also allowed to and will install arborvitae, for natural screening or whatever the board may suggest. We certainly are ready, willing, and able to do that. In doing this, obviously we had a problem already when we had the intensity of the business being open prior to COVID. People were parking along the street. They were parking down the side streets in front of residential properties. And obviously it created a real bad safety issue. One of the frequent patrons there is Sheriff Apple. He knows the owner very well, and he did not like what he saw there as well. And he did provide a nice letter in support of this problem. So here we are back in front of the board. We brought more information that I submitted, saying, documents that showed that we were really asking for what we're supposed to have here. Somehow this got missed in the original review and approval process. Obviously, that's water over the dam, so we just want to get it right now, if you will, and move forward with this project. COVID has obviously devastated the business. She got their PPP loans or whatever, that did help a little bit, but unfortunately, she was closed for 3 years. She was open for 3 months, and now she's been basically closed for quite a long time, and now things are just starting to get a little bit better. So financially, without having COVID impact her, we can't keep the cars on the property, and yet the business is not being used to its potential, not even close. We did provide a little financial statement for really only the month or so that she was open, which was really the peak for her. Everyone was excited, and it's still not that good. So you don't build a building to, obviously safety is a huge concern with the building. We've complied with all of that. And now we have space for people to come and enjoy it, and they can't get in there for parking reasons, safety reasons, and yet there's room for people to enjoy dining there. If you have questions regarding a lot of documents I submitted back in the day, be happy to go over those with you. Of course, answer any of your questions right now.
Thank you, Ted, very much. For the benefit of the board, I'm going to ask that Don just quickly review the current thinking of the building department and just remind everyone that it's my understanding, unless corrected otherwise, that what Ted and his client are looking for is a use variance. And Don, I'd let you please explain the provisions of the town land use laws.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So the denial of the application falls under 190-34 for non-conforming uses, B, sub 1, sub A, extension. A non-conforming use shall not be enlarged or extended beyond the area occupied by such use, nor structure occupied by or accessory to such use shall be constructed, enlarged, or extended, except the following: a storage shed or garage that is clearly accessory and incidental to the non-conforming use, an existing telecommunications tower where additional antennas and or equipment, cabinets, and cables are added without increasing the height of the tower. That's the section of the denial.
Thank you. Michael, counsel, is there anything you'd like to add to that before we go into discussion with the board?
Well, we took a look at the case law as well, Jim, and pretty clear. The latest case from the third department is the Costa case in 41 Appellate Division 3rd, which basically held that the expansion of the pre-existing non-conforming use should be limited only to the original size and scope of the prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance. And additionally, I took a look at the parking cases, and there's a case matter of Aramis versus Saccharin, that was decided just a few years ago, that very clearly states that expansion of a parking area is a use variance and requires use variance proof.
Thank you, Michael. Members of the board, any questions for Ted or Michael or Don at this point in time on this particular matter or
Jim,
clarification?
this is Dave. I have
Yes,
I have a
David.
question. Wasn't this considered an area variance first? And then I thought this was going to be an area variance at one time and then maybe because of the way they want it with the parking. But was it always variance?
And David, it would have been an area variance if it wasn't a pre-existing non-conforming use. Okay.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that.
Questions? Is there anyone else in the waiting room, Kim, that wants to speak on this particular proposal?
I'm unsure. Everybody's
If
here
you're in the
right
waiting
now,
room
so
and you want to
anybody-
talk about this, tell them to raise their hand.
I don't have any cameras here.
Oh,
And
okay.
everybody's on mute. Let me see. No, everybody's here, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chairman, this is
Yes,
Nick. I
Nick.
just had a quick question I need for a reminder. Is there still a tent for outdoor dining in the parking lot of Blessings right now? Ed?
No, there is not, Nick. That was removed, obviously late in the fall. So
Okay.
that did help when COVID was really at its peak because we could not have inside dining. It was so limited. I forgot what the percentage was, might have been 25.
Yeah.
So that is not there. Of course, when it was there, that took like 6 parking spaces away.
Yeah.
Is it okay if I can talk a little bit to the use variance issue, or should I wait for that?
No, Ted, please. We want to have an open, transparent discussion.
Thank
So
you.
please do.
You know, and I totally agree with what Don is saying. That's why I brought the issue up that, you know, this property has had the use variance criteria proven more than once. You know, as I said, it is a pre-existing non-conforming use that's permitted there to be rebuilt, and we could not rebuild it in the same footprint for the reasons I noted. So that's why we had to go to the board, and they've been in front of the board more than once for slight expansion of the use, because, you know, obviously that's really what it is, and I agree to that. So we did prove use variance criteria more than once, and then my issue is that when we did do this in 2017, we're talking about the parking. I mean, unfortunately, it was totally missed through the planning review process. I'm brutally honest, because it should have been noted that, well, we need a little more parking. So that should have been, in my opinion, part of the variance that was heard in 2017. Then the board could have decided then, you know, how to act. But now we have this building there. Obviously, it's all code compliant, and we have a safety issue. And we're trying to alleviate all of that, and again, a financial issue on the owner by keeping the parking on the property. It's not a secret that she has a small area across the road that is paved area that is not her property, that's been used since 1950 for some cars. And unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen, but the owner of that property recently passed away, and he was in his 90s. So she's had an agreement for, well, since she's owned it in 2001, to use that area, which allows, I don't know, I do not know the number of parking spots. Maybe it's 8 or 9 or something like that. So we have a good feeling that that may be lost as well. So that'll put a further stranglehold on this. So I just wanted to, you know, mention to the board, I do realize this is a use variance. I always thought it was. That's why we were already in front of the board in 1968, not me. I was like 10 years old. But then in 2017, and here we are again.
Thank you, Ted. Any other questions or observations from members of the board?
Chairman,
The planning department, the planning department approved it?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Attachment number 6 that I provided all the members, there's an approval in writing there that said when we were going to get our permit in 2018 that the planning department reviewed the proposal and it was accepted as designed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but Ted, that was not the extra parking. That was just the alterations to the footprint of the building itself in order to accommodate ADA requirements. Is that correct?
No. The planning department, and you know, Don can answer this question, but I mean, you're asking me. The planning department, it handles the site. Is the site adequate to support what the building is for? And, you know, now we look back, the site was not adequate. That's what I'm stating, that in the law, in the parking requirement 190-47K in the planning department review, because once you get the zoning approval, you know, then of course we can go to the building department so they can look at the building, which is from the outside walls in, but the planning department handles the site. So that was their responsibility to say, wait a minute, this parking requirement 190-47K is we're not complying with this. That's where we're short on our 13 parking spots.
Right.
So, but yet they reviewed it.
I apologize, but can you tell me where that's referenced in your attachment 6?
Yes, attachment 6, Town of Colony Planning Economic Development. Excuse me, Development Department. I assume you have that. I provided everybody a copy, and I think even Kim. I'm not sure if you should put it up
I
again.
can put it up right now, Ted.
It's the last paragraph.
Correct. It says the Planning and Economic Development Department has reviewed the plans for the proposed site change and above referenced site development. Departmental approval is granted.
Right.
That's part of the.
Yeah, but that wasn't for additional parking spaces.
No, that was for the parking. Not for the additional. Why we're here in front of you today.
Well, that's my point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed that. Initially in 2017, when we proposed the building, we showed that the parking, as we just saw it in the site plan that Kim brought up, the existing parking, where there was no existing, it was gone. but we replicated what was there before. We didn't
Correct.
increase parking.
Correct.
Okay, because we used what we had there. We certainly could have showed the area in red, but which is lawn, but we didn't realize we needed it because planning didn't say, hey, you need more parking. You have to have more parking.
Right.
So we basically replace what was there, with one exception. Mr. Campbell, we removed the parking on the corner and we pulled the employee parking around the side of the building. We
Right.
just
That's what I
moved-
remember.
Correct. So I'm sorry if I didn't understand your question. The planning department approved our original plan in 2017 with the original parking
Parking.
spots.
Correct.
That's where something went wrong. At that point, they should have said, hold on a second, we don't have enough parking according to the formula I just mentioned in that chapter. So fast forward to today, we're asking to do what the law and the planning department says we're supposed to do.
Well, Teddy, just one comment, if I can make one, is that
Please, Michael.
Well, I agree with you that it would have been nice to get the additional parking. This is what the town did, and that's why I understood the parking lot was limited to what was there before, was complying, allowing her to rebuild the pre-existing building and use situation. That's why my understanding was that they only allowed the parking that had pre-existed the situation. And so while I agree with you that certainly the parking formula would apply in a new situation, because this is a rebuild of a non-conforming structure, I don't think what the planning department did was not purposeful. That they simply allowed the reconstruction of the existing parking lot as in accord with the statute.
Mhm. I'll conclude with my comments. I think the town and the zoning board of appeals has long held very strict standards on any kind of development in a single family residential neighborhood that is not appropriate for a single family residential neighborhood. And as Don pointed out, this is in addition to an existing non-conforming use, and most likely it would have a negative impact on the single family zoning district. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, I just want to make a point. I disagree with what you're saying with regards to, you see the outcome that we're having now, cars parking along the road, down side streets in front of residential properties. To my knowledge, we only have one person that is not happy with it, and that's the very next door adjacent neighbor. We had a petition we presented in front of the board last time we were there for, I don't know, 20 some neighbors that said, we're in favor of this. They've lived there all their lives. In fact, those houses were never there prior to this building. This building was the first building in that location. So to have all the parking on the same premise off the street, not parking in front of residential properties, I think is, making things definitely more pleasant and a safety issue that's going to comply with what the parking should be there. Obviously, the board will decide however they decide, and we understand a lot of that. But I can just see this being a hindrance and a problem for people parking along the road, down the side streets, and I'm sure the town does not want that. But the neighbors do want the parking lot. I mean,
No,
have the cars where
the
they are.
neighbors, the petitions that you submitted back in July were for the variance to rebuild the tavern.
No, sir.
It wasn't about
No.
expanded parking.
I'm talking about the variance that we heard last summer. I brought petitions.
Right, back in July, yeah.
Yeah.
When you say the neighbors were supportive, of your variance. You're right, the original variance to rebuild the facility.
We had 1,000 petitions to rebuild the building back in 2017.
Yeah.
No, when I was back to you in June, we got like 20 some neighbors that were right along the road, the side of the road, that they said, we prefer this to stop. We want park on your own property.
We'll review that at another matter.
Sure.
Is there any further discussion on this, guys?
One last question.
Yes, David.
Is there any willingness to add asphalt, would you accept for less than 13, or it doesn't pay for you to do that? For less than 13 additional cars, could it be done for half of that and give you some, and it would solve some of your problem and then solve some of the neighbor problems with cars on their street? So let's say you add 7 new asphalts for 7 new cars. Would
He
that
still-
work?
David, he still would have a use variance criteria issue.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frankly, I think the only way to, in view of the history situation, and I agree with Ted that it would be nice to have the additional off-street parking, is to, for the town board to act on an ODA or whatever, an open development area, and absolutely just rezone the thing to straighten the problem out. Our problem is that we're construed by the statute and the case law. Constrained, excuse me. So, yeah.
Just to add to Dave's comment, yes, of course, if the board, and I know Mr. Gary already basically touched on that. If we had to reduce it slightly, some is better than none.
All right.
If there's
Well,
no,
Ted, I did
go
want
ahead,
to,
Mike.
I read some of your report. You had indicated in one of the filings or communications that her business was up 30%.
No, it's down 30 to 40%. That's what I have in my narratives. Third of the building is not being occupied. At least a third of the building when the parking lot is full, which is I think 16 spots. No, 26. At least a third or 30 to 40% of the building is vacant.
I understand. What I'm simply saying to you is that you're asking the board to give you relief that I think we're statutorily and case law precluded from doing. That the solution is with the town board.
And Ted, I do apologize. I found that the petitions that you submitted back in July.
Yeah, I don't blame you, Jim. It's been a long time.
It's been a long file. It's been a long,
Yeah.
long file.
Twice as long. Exactly.
Okay. Okay, I'll get the ball rolling here. I'm going to make a recommendation that we deny the request for the variance as presented to us tonight to get discussion going on that. Is there a second to that?
Okay, I'll second, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
sir. Any discussion? For or against? Anybody have any questions on what my motion is? Hearing none. All right, we'll move then to a vote. Member Vigiani,
With the motion.
Member Hong,
With the motion, I just want to say, Ted, like your letter said, I totally support local business, but in this case, we just have to go by the statute, and I'm sorry for that. And I vote with the motion.
thank you, Kirk. Member Swanson,
With the motion.
thank you, Member Rosenthal,
Against the motion.
and the chair votes with the motion. It is hereby approved that the request for the variance is hereby denied, Ted.
Understand.
I want to thank everyone for their patience and understanding in dealing with this matter. I know it's been a complex and highly emotional matter, but we wish the owners of Blessings Taverns well as the COVID becomes less and less of a restriction to their own business. Maybe their business will pick up substantially now that our governor allows more people to eat indoors. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you,
very
Ted.
much.
We're moved to our new business now before the board. The first item of business is 320 Osborne Road. Take notice that the Town of Colonie Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a televised hearing on the 21st of April, 2021 at 7 p.m. to hear the appeal of Ted DeLucia for Vision Planning Consultants, an agent for O.J. Meyer from the decision of the building department manager for the Town of Colonie, denying them a building permit for the premises located at 320 Osborne Road. The proposed subdivision to create a new 25,571 plus or minus square foot lot with a 25.5 foot front lot line and a 25.5 foot width at the front building setback line is not compliant with the minimum 80-foot minimum front lot line and 80-foot minimum width at the front of the building setback line required in a single-family residential zoning district, as stated in the Town of Colony Land Use Law, Article 6, Sections 190-24, 190-25, and 190 at attachment number 2 dimensional table. Upon the request for a variance from the provisions of the Code of the Town of Colony, Chapter 190, to permit such construction and use, and a secret determination for such appeal. To protect public safety during the state of emergency triggered by COVID-19, this public hearing will take place via video conference. Comments submitted will be read aloud by the chairman during the hearing. Any member of the public wishing to listen and view this meeting, please refer to the town's YouTube channel. We have the affidavit of publications noted here, and this is deemed a type 2 seeker requiring no further review by the town. Ted, welcome back.
For some reason, I lost you.
You're on.
Do you see me? I don't know what happened.
Yep.
Oh, there I am. Sorry. I didn't run away. I'm not mad yet. Thank you very much. We're looking at, as you just mentioned, a parcel on 320 Osborne Road that is quite large parcel of land. It's slightly over an acre, and my clients that own this house at 320 also own and live in a house at Lardon Parkway, which is the parallel street, if you will, to this property. So the backyard of Loudon Parkway back up to this parcel, and it backs up to several parcels down Loudon Parkway, I think almost to lot 10. When I canvassed the area, I delivered leaflets to the neighbors and so on and so forth. And so I'm familiar with the area. The Knoxon Court comes in parallel with Osborne Road, but it doesn't come down as far as butting up to this lot. It comes, I think, 2 lots away. This house on 320 was built many decades ago, and then the rest of Osborne got built once Knoxon Court came in, and those lots did not go back as deep as this one in particular, although the other ones are basically fairly size lots. So in doing so, the clients here, they've lived in this area a good many years, and I see that they're here tonight as part of the video conference, and I'm sure they'll have more personal thing to add than I can really do. They lived there many years where they are located now, and as you said, they own 320, but they has a rental property, and they're looking to build a ranch in the back of this property on 320. By doing so, we're looking to reduce the required 80-foot of frontage for this lot down to about 25-foot just for driveway access only, to get back to the property in the rear, which is 25,000 square complies. The property at 320 Osborne that's existing, that comply with the current zoning law, the frontages, the square footage, and so forth. The new lot in the back will far exceed what the requirements are today. The setbacks will exceed everything. The only thing we're asking for is a reduction on the frontage Osborne Road. And I know I've mentioned this before with other keyhole lots that the board has looked at and been very kind to approve. The reason why we have to have 80-foot of frontages is because typically those where the houses are built, and we want to make sure they're adequately spaced apart from each other. If we obviously had narrow lots, the houses would be much closer to each other. So in this particular case, we're not looking to build a house in an area on frontage that is less than the requirement. We're only asking for a 12-foot driveway to go out to that area along Osborne Road, where the house is going to be placed. And again, this is just a hypothetical where it says proposed dwelling at 60 by 30. Because the owners are obviously, this is way ahead of schedule. They're hopeful they get the variance, but they haven't really thought about the house yet. I know I presented a draft drawing of the house, but quite frankly, that's just maybe a rendering of what it might look like at the front. Is much larger than the anticipation of the house. So please do not look at that as, oh, it's 3,000 square foot. That's not what our intent is, and I'll have the owner speak to that. It's just to give an example that we're looking to do a ranch. So once again, the house is going to be back behind, I believe it's number 4, Loudon Parkway. The owners live at number 2, which is where the hash mark is, if you will. You'll see that there, right there. That's where they reside. I went to number 6, I think. Number 8, I met with the owners there. They didn't have a problem. So the house will be behind, quite a ways behind that house on 6. It's basically a matured area, trees, and we can do whatever the board would like if they feel so that they would like to approve this. The elevations are very flat back there. It's not critical for any type of water issues. Of course, if we get approved, we have to go through the subdivision process, which basically, makes us make sure that we do all of the state requirements that are imposed, which we always have to do now anyway. So that's really the sense of what we're asking for here in the single family residential zoning district. We realize the law says 80, but for the reasons I mentioned, we feel that it's not a problem for the access. I did do an addendum to my narrative, which states that, I have 4 or 5 or 6 previous keyhole lots that were approved at 22 foot, 25 foot, 30 and 30. They all work very well. Some of them are in North County, some of them are in South County. And again, I did do a detachment of, there's several examples within this neighborhood, if you will, short distance in circumference. I gave 12 examples if you had a chance to review them. They range from 35 foot of frontage down as low as 15 foot of frontage. If you remember Princess Lane, which was developed probably 25 years ago, a brand new subdivision, beautiful subdivision, and there's 4 lots in there that are built. That's how the design was, and it worked because the law back then was you had to have 15, and that's what the New York State town law tells us we have to have. We have to have 15, and then local municipalities can bump it up to their zoning standard, what they feel is comfortable. Many other municipalities, I know it doesn't pertain to county, but they have a provision in their zoning laws that specifically regulate keyhole or flag lots. They allow them, but in many instances, you have to do something, bump something up. The square footage has to be bumped up of the parcel, maybe 30%, or the setbacks have to be bumped up 25%. But they understand that, all these frontages along a road are eating up road frontages. But if you got a big piece of land in the back, is it fair that we can't utilize that? And that was the purpose of some of the exceptions in these other local municipalities. So I'll just open it up and questions. The owners I see are here, and I think they can speak to the personal issues with the property, which means a lot to them because they live there and they want to stay there.
Thank you, Ted. Let's start with Nick. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, Chairman, I actually would prefer to wait to hear
Okay.
the owners and the and any folks in the audience, if you don't mind.
No, that's perfectly okay.
Thank you,
Tracy?
appreciate it.
Chairman, if it's okay, I'd like to do the same.
Then not a problem. Kirk?
Hey, Ted, I got a couple of questions. So I'm looking at the plan. There's this small area with a hedge area, and it says parcel to be merged with 2 Loudon Parkway, area equal to 18,000 square feet. So is it the only this small area to be merged to Loudon Parkway, or the whole 18,000 square feet?
No, Kirk, you're referring to that hashed area. The owners of 320 Osborne Road also own 2 Loudon Parkway. Okay.
Yes, I
Where the arrow,
understand that.
so they currently reside there, and but in doing so with this project, they would like to add that 20-foot to their parcel at 2 Loudon Parkway. That doesn't impact what we're trying to do with this proposal. We're just taking 1,800 square foot of area and adding it to number 2 Loudon Parkway. We can do that regardless of this project. It's just we kind of wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will. So that's just their intent. They just wanted to get that 20 more foot.
Okay, 1,800.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
got
yeah,
it.
it's just
And also the new building, new house, would the owner be living in the new house if it get
Yes.
approved and built?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
Okay.
and they can speak to that. They want to move from 2 Loudon Parkway into this new house.
Okay. And so, just, maybe I'm asking too much. So
Yeah.
who lives in this 2-story house in the front?
I'll have the owners answer that. I wouldn't tell you.
Okay.
I don't want to make a mistake and say.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I don't need to know the name or everything. Is it rented out or I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
So if I can jump.
I'll have them answer that question.
Are we muted or?
No, we're on mute.
Okay. So yeah, maybe this is a good time for me to tell us what's going on here. So on 320 Osborne, so we live at 2 Loudon Parkway. We've lived here since 1992. Neither of us are from this area, but we also lived in Albany for 4 years before that. So at this point, this is home. We've lived here longer than we've lived anywhere else in our lives. In 2001, I think it was 2001, maybe 2002, we purchased 320 Osborne as a family because my mom had passed away, and we bought that for my father. Similar story in the sense that it was, it had a first floor bedroom, first floor bathroom. He was alone, and so that's why we purchased that house in the first instance. He has since long passed, and it now was a rental property for us. And in May of 2018, I had an accident, and I fell hiking, and I injured my knee really badly. And that got us, that's what precipitated this whole sort of adventure here, is it got me thinking about, what are we going to do in our older age? Because my prognosis for my knee is not very good. And so we started looking at, we don't have a first floor bedroom bathroom in our house out on Loudon Parkway. And so we started thinking about options. We looked into adding a room on this house, and it's just the way that the house is laid out and the property, et cetera, it just isn't really a very practical option. So that got us thinking about, we've been here a long time. We'd like to stay in the area. If we could utilize that land at the back of 320 Osborne to put a house up for ourselves, that would be really beneficial. And that's kind of, again, what sort of started all of this. And so this isn't like we didn't buy the land, or we're not trying to be developers or anything like that. It's just really for utilization for us in our retirement. If it gets to the point that we cannot live in a house that's got all the bedrooms upstairs, it's pretty simple as that.
Okay.
May I add one thing? Is it possible to remove the map so we don't see you? Oh, there you are. You asked who is living there right now. About 4 years ago, we had Victor's brother living there. He passed away. We ended up keeping the house open for almost a year because Victor's accident caused us to have to drive around to Osborne Road, so I can take him there because there was a downstairs bathroom, so he can actually take a shower there, because you couldn't do that for 2 months in our house here. And then after that, we rented it to a young man who used to be a classmate of my daughters at school, Loudonville Elementary and on. And so that's who he is right now. That's the renter who is there right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kirk. David, before we go, we'll just go around the horn once.
I just want to make a comment that where I lived, Alpine Drive turned into Windlass Drive, and they had a house tucked in the back. All they had in the front off of Windlass was a driveway. And then the land blew out with a huge property in the back, and that worked very well, just similar to this, where you're going to drive it off a street and you got a big lot behind you. And I just want to make a comment that it worked out very well for all the years I lived there, and I'm sure it's still doing very well now.
Thank you, David. All right, well, then let's move to our guests. Ted, does your client want to speak any further on this, or should we go to the rest of the people in the waiting room?
I think if Victor's okay with it, we'll wait to see if anybody has something to add that maybe he can, basically address.
Okay, thank you. Kim, who's in the waiting room?
We have Mr. Dibble.
Thank you.
I
Mr.
just
Dibble.
need you to unmute. Hold on.
There we go.
Mhm.
Can you hear us? Hi, my name is Paul Angster. I'm an attorney over in Rensselaer County, a real estate attorney, and I'm here representing Dan Dibble. Dan has previously written and submitted a written letter to the board, generally in opposition, and I think it speaks for itself. And I understand that'll be read into the minutes of the meeting this evening.
That is correct.
Can I ask where the gentleman lives, if he's a neighbor?
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Dan Dibble lives at 322 Osborne Road, immediately adjacent to the property subject to the board's decision tonight. And our primary concern is set forth in Mr. Dibble's letter is the access onto Osborne Road.
Well, Paul, having said that, I'll read the letter at this time.
Thank you.
Dated April 19th, 2021, Chair and board members. This public comment is follow-up to my email to Mr. Joe Mahan of the Town of Colonie Building Department addressing the application for a building permit and subdivision at 320 Osborne Road, Loudonville. I only became aware of the application in the past 3 weeks and have since made an effort to understand the criterion the board considers before granting or denying such applications. I have spoken with Victor Palazzo and the owner of the said property, and we have had several polite discussions regarding his efforts to subdivide the 1 acre parcel into 2 buildable lots. There's already a house on the front edge of the property on Osborne Road. I have voiced my objections and concerns to him, and I must say he has not seemed indifferent. Mr. Palazzo is a great neighbor and a nice friend, and unfortunately in this case, our dreams seem juxtaposed. My family has lived on Osborne Road since 1956. I've moved back here in 1966 and have lived at 322 Osborne Road since, and have recently purchased the property from my mother's estate. My reasons for purchasing the house were mainly for its smallish, manageable size and magnificent wooded lot nestled between 2 other 1 acre lots, all 3 being clearly zoned single family. Without the comfort of this zoning, it's doubtful that I would have bought the property. I have no interest in living next door to a construction site or 2 free market lots. Now that you've all been moved to tears by my long presence in the neighborhood and obviously connection to the property, let's change course here and address the practical concerns of the subdivision. To wit, Osborne Road is one of the busiest connections in the Albany area. If you ask anyone who lives on Osborne Road what is the most frightening thing they do all day, they'll tell you, unless they're a lion tamer or demolition expert, that pulling out of their driveway makes the rest of the day seem easy. It is at best a dangerous proposition. The frontage at 320 Osborne is simply not extensive enough to accommodate a second driveway without making the dangerous situation worse. We've all heard the screeching tires and the breaking glass. I've read the applicant's papers in support of the variance, which states their intentions to take a lot which has been zoned forever as a single family and subdivide it into 2 lots that are almost in compliance with the 80-foot frontage requirement. In the 320 Osborne application, it is stated, quote, "The requested reduced front lot width has no negative impact because it is very sufficient for a driveway width and is not impacting any neighbor or visibility," end quote. That's simply wrong. The potential for the reduced visibility increases dramatically with each vehicle competing to get out on Osborne Road. There are already 3 driveway cuts in a space of approximately 80 foot. This would make 4. Also, the proposed driveway would be right next to mine and would run along almost the entire eastern border of the property, disrupting the pastoral nature of the 2 lots, and no doubt requiring the removal of countless old growth trees. Any requirement by the board to plant a buffer after the new driveway is authorized will never match the present green space my property now enjoys. Balancing the inequities between granting the variance and protecting the safety of the neighborhood on Osborne is clear and unequivocal. Our safety takes precedence. Granting the variance creates a precedence that it is okay to subdivide what has been a single-family lot for almost 80 years into 2 single-family homes, notwithstanding the fact that the new lots will be undersized. The size allowed by law was surely well thought out and made with a valid basis. The variance of lot size to allow a driveway, parking area, and other house to be built next door is clearly a multiple and substantial negative impact on my lot, both aesthetically and by diminishing its value. A variance allowed under these circumstances sets the slippery slope for all the remaining lots to be so changed. Thank you for your time and understanding. Sincerely, Dan Dibble. We also, while we're on this point, we also have some other letters, both pro and con. We have one now from Obert and Nancy Wood of 328 Osborne Road. Please accept this email as formal objection to the variance request with respect to 320 Osborne Road. Please reject the appeal and affirm the decision of the building department manager to deny a building permit. It is respectfully submitted that the requested increase in square footage on the lot and reduction in setbacks would detract from the residential character of the neighborhood and potentially increase vehicular traffic on an already congested Osborne Road. Thank you. A letter from Stanley, it looks like I cannot, on 6 Loudon Parkway. We live at 6 Loudon Parkway. We received the notice regarding the building permit. We are not opposed to and support the appeal of Ted Lucia regarding 320 Osborne Road. And there's also a letter in support from Donna Wang, who I believe lives at 2 Loudon Parkway, even though her address was not noted on the note that we have. And that's a letter in support. And finally, for the benefit of all listening tonight, we have.
Hello,
we
excuse
have,
me.
Donna Wang is here.
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
here.
okay.
And
All right,
I'm
thank you.
actually at 318 Osborne.
Oh, okay, thank
And
you.
it's written right below my signature.
Okay, I couldn't see it. I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you, Donna, for that clarification. And lastly, we have a letter from the Town of Colonie Planning and Economic Development Department. According to our records, the property does not contain an environmental feature that would require additional action by the department or supporting boards. We do have departmental comments to share on this request. In the applicant's narrative, they address the area variance criteria. We would note that while the applicant does not believe that this action would be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood, however, in our review of the area, this variance would be a departure from the typical lot layout in that neighborhood that includes at least 80 feet, often more, of lot frontage. We did not identify any flag or keyhole type frontage within a quarter mile of the subject property. Additionally, there are a number of deep lots similar to the subject property that, if granted area variances, would certainly change the character of the area, including an increase in overall density and additional driveway access along a county highway. That concludes the information that had been submitted to the board prior to tonight's gathering. So, Ted, I'll go back to you. Do you have anything to add to the comments that were just made?
Not so much to the personal comments, because I don't live there, and those individuals can speak how they. I just like to speak to the facts. If we do go through this process and we're approved, we have to do site distance calculations for any driveway that exits on any road. And those are they're state requirements. So if we don't pass that test, then we can't have a driveway. So there's sympathy, and so I don't go down that road, but I'm saying that just by getting a zoning approval does not necessarily mean that we are going to be successful through the subdivision process, because there's a lot of other things that have to be met, standards, minimums to comply with. And that goes all the way through to the drainage analysis and sewer and water and all of those things, because I know that's a really hot button issue when we do anything about where's the water going to go. So I just want to pass that on information. I understand the planning letter requirement, but I did provide a dozen examples of properties that are within the circumference of what I noted, that have small frontages and that have been there for many, many years successfully.
Thank you, Ted.
Excuse me, if I can just add one other comment.
Sure, Victor.
Response is, we started this process a couple of years ago, just due to my particular circumstance. But I have spoken with, the immediate neighbors, including Dan, and Dan's been a great neighbor, and we've got a good relationship. And initially, he was not in opposition of this, and I just feel like I need to state that. Now he's had a change of opinion, which I fully respect, and that's fine. But I've gone down this path, started going down this path with the understanding that people were not, wasn't going to cause trouble for folks. And this may never even happen. I mean, this is not like an imminent decision. Like, we don't have an immediate plan to do anything. This is more of a planning for the future kind of approach that we're taking. Because just of prognosis I received a couple of years ago, that the long-term health of my ability to be mobile is probably going to be limited, and living through that already with my father, it sort of struck a chord. That's all.
Thank you. Well, I'll go back to the board members now that they've had the opportunity to hear from the neighbors. Nick?
Actually, I don't have any questions at this time, Chairman.
Okay.
I don't think it was 100% clear to me how any sort of barrier in between. Is it would it be 320 and 3? Is it 322? Is the next house that's set back?
Yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit more to me? It was hard to see on the screen, but that's my only question for now.
Nick, excuse me, are you looking for a neighbor to explain that what barrier will be removed? Because I'm not aware of any barrier. That's
No,
gonna be
I didn't know if there'd
moved.
be any. I'm sorry, Ted, I wasn't clear. I was asking if you could clarify, is there going to be any kind of barrier, like a growth barrier or anything built in between the new driveway and the most impacted neighbor?
We haven't shown a proposal of that level yet, but if we get through the zoning board, the zoning board can obviously put conditions on it that they require that. The planning department is a big help when it comes through that. And I know the property owners are willing to do anything, obviously, to make it comfortable, because they want to live there. That's where they want to live. And as Victor has mentioned, he has a rapport with the neighbor at 322. So if we were to get an approval, I'm sure, they would work this out. For vegetation throughout the parcel as it is, we're not looking to take anything away that's going to hinder someone's privacy. But quite frankly, the location of this house is not adjacent to anybody. The proposed house is not adjacent to anybody. That's going to be a negative impact.
Okay, I just didn't know how much tree removal you had anticipated and whether there were going to be any natural barriers, built in between. So it was just hard to read on the plan on the.
Right, I understand, because it doesn't give you a topo and everything, but we're not going to, decimate the area. We will obviously have to make access in there, not totally 25 feet wide, just as I mentioned about the road. So we will save what we can, and I'm sure that's the goal of the owners to do that. Or we would obviously replace or install new stuff to get a lower growth for any type of protection or privacy. you know, because as I said, it works both ways.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Tracy?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Thanks. Kirk?
From neighbors' objections, seems like they are concerned about the driveway, right?
Correct.
And so if there's a traffic study can be done, you know, just see what's the impact, you know, I assume that's probably, you know, 2 car coming out and certain time, and, you know, the traffic volume on that road, Osborne Road, there's, you know, there's a traffic, I think study, maybe town has some data, you know, I'm just thinking, so if the board and the neighbor have that information and see the impact, maybe, you know, that would help, you know, some kind of a conclusion, I guess.
For 62 years.
Joe or Ted, what's usually with Kirk's question? I mean, is that something that's normally done early on in the process? The fact that there'd be another curb cut put on Osborne Road?
Yeah, this is a county road, and we'll have to go through the county for that. There wouldn't be a traffic study for a single home. The requirement does not go down that far, that a traffic study has to be done for a single residence. The site distance calculations, yes, those have to be, as I already mentioned. There has to be a formula that you have to meet to make sure that the speed of the road, distance of where the driveway is, the visibility at 3 foot from the ground, at typically what a car window is, you have to see, I'll say, for example, 400 feet in each direction or whatever.
You can't see 400 feet. No.
Mm-hmm.
But that has to be met before you can obviously get a green light to do what we're asking to do. Joe might have more information, but those are the 2 things that I can know about.
I agree with what Ted said, and I would say that the building department would not issue a building permit until we knew that the Albany County would approve a driveway on the street. Probably wouldn't
Okay.
subdivision process before that either. So we would know well before anything was attempted to be built.
Okay. So can Albany County provide? I mean, you know, before the board decided anything, can Albany County have some assessment?
I don't think anybody can assess anything unless they would have an official application to the county, and to have an official application to the county, they would probably have to have a proposed subdivision from us. So I think this would be the first step to going to that direction. That's basically all I would say about that.
Thank you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
David?
No questions.
Michael, any comments from council's office at this time?
Thank you, Jim. Just want to point out here, of course, that the applicant acquired the property, I think it was 2003, for 100 and some odd thousand. I assume he's getting market rent for the property over there. But you know, variance applications and the shrink the size here, we do this on hardship. A quick look at the records show, I think that Vince was able to pay off the mortgage last month. I understand he's got some health issues, but we're about the land. You know, we certainly have sympathy for his knee situation, but his knee situation isn't something that we frankly would consider. This is about what we do here with this variance, what runs with the land. So it would be a situation where what we have to worry about is the property, not the applicant's health. It appeared that Vince was able, fortunately, to get his mortgage paid off last month on the property. But the question at this point in time is hardship. When we grant a variance, the planning board is department is obviously vocal against the application. Those of us who travel that road know how heavily it's wooded, and we're also very, familiar with the difficulties of pulling out on that roadway, particularly with that hump that as you come up from Albany Shaker, it gets to be a difficult area. So, but I also appreciate the comments from the planning department that to approve this would open the door for the other similar lots in the immediate neighborhood situation here. So and since the applicant's plans are iffy a little bit at this point in time, typically the board, when we act on things, we want to see a definitive plan about what's going to happen. But I just don't see the hardship at this point in time. And when you couple that with the traffic issues on Osborne, I don't know whether, for example, a driveway could be proposed from the applicant's existing home where he lives on the other street. Would that make more sense? But we all are pretty well versed on the density of the driveways and streets and the traffic issues coming out on Osborne Road.
Well, I mean,
Thank you, Michael. This is a tough one for me. I'll be very honest with everyone. I've been doing this now for about 10 years, and I happen to know the applicants personally. My children went to school with their children, so in the spirit of full disclosure. But I'm a little bit concerned about the historical nature of the area where we start taking, this area has been developed in its current form for decades. And to now go in and try and squeeze another house into a well-developed neighborhood is somewhat of a concern to me personally. And I just don't, would you consider tearing down the one house and just living with the one piece of property and building a new house in the back? Which you wouldn't have to come before us to do. Just as hypothetical, for instance, since we're talking hypotheticals tonight anyhow.
Can I be very frank?
Absolutely.
I never wanted to be a landlord. We never intended to be a landlord. But now that we have that, it's sort of built into our retirement plans. And that's just reality.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the traffic issue on Osborne, we pull out on that road every day from Loudon Parkway, right? It's the same thing. And yes, are there times of day that road is busy? Certainly, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge. But for the majority of the day, it's not. First thing in the morning and first thing in early evening when people are returning from work is when it's tough. The rest of the time, it's fine. So we live that every day now. So from my perspective, it's no different than what we deal with today.
Can I also add something? I'm Greek. I was born and raised in Greece, so I'm not from this area. I've made this my home since my kids were very young. So they went through the elementary school and the high school, and we have ties in the community. So if it gets to the point, in fact, a few years ago, we were asked to move to Cleveland because of my husband's work. And instead of selling this house, because we love the house and the neighborhood and the ties we have here, we rented a house in Cleveland and lived there for a year while we spent Christmas and holidays here, because this is really our home. And ideally, I don't want to have to move anywhere. I don't want to move there or there. And certainly I don't want to move out of this neighborhood. So for right now, we absolutely have no plans. Another thing I want to say is that this particular house that we moved in, we've done extensive work over the years since we bought it, but we've always tried to maintain the look of the neighbor. We always had that in mind. We didn't try to build something that didn't fit in this community. We didn't try to take trees down so we wouldn't have privacy. In fact, we put extra trees so our neighbors can have privacy. And we put a white fence so our renter right now has privacy. And we don't bother them. So that has always been a concern. And if we were to build something, again, it will be with the mind that we would want as much privacy as our neighbors do want, and we have that in mind, as well as the architecture of the neighborhood, which is very important to us. That's why we live here, and that's why we love this area so much, because of the trees and the flowers and the gardens that are here. So that will also be taken into consideration. But since my husband had that problem with his knee, we are trying to be proactive and think of the future. And if he gets to the point that he cannot go up the stairs, we're going to have to move to another neighborhood. And I understand, Mr. Gary, that you said about the hardship. Maybe it should be taken into consideration that we are long time residents of here who have taken care of our neighbors, Dan, who's also our neighbor, and Donna next door, can attest to the fact that we've always tried to be very considerate neighbors. So even if we were to build something in the future, it will be with consideration of our neighbors. So that's, I just want to make sure that everybody knows that.
Thank you. Donna, I know you've been trying to, do you have some comments to offer? I know you've been kind of texting through the Zoom.
Well, thank you for recognizing me. Well, I wanted to agree with a previous statement that the Policies are wonderful neighbors. I feel very blessed to have them as my next door neighbors. I bought this house here at 318 in 2014. And to be quite honest, I almost didn't buy this house because it's on Osborne and I thought it was a heavily traveled road. But I've been here now, as I said, since July of 2014. And what we have a turnaround and we head out face first onto Osborne, and it really hasn't been a problem. As Victor already mentioned, rush hour, it can be a problem. If there's any problem, it's people blowing through the stop sign on Loudon Parkway, turning onto Osborne. Not, I'm right on the corner. So, if they don't stop at that stop sign, I can look to the left and they can be right at my, my driver door. But, rush hours, yeah, I might have to wait a few seconds, but traffic is I'm actually pleased. It's not as bad. Now saying that, maybe something will happen, but I think earlier, there was some comment about tires screeching and glass crashing and all that. I haven't, since I've been here, there's been one accident a little farther up the road towards Albany Shaker. I don't know that intersection, but there was one accident since I've been here. But I don't know what else I can add. It's not, I think it was a little over dramatized.
No, it wasn't. Thank you, Donna. Joe, would you please just recap exactly for the board members what the application for the area variance is?
So this specific one, the only variance that he's asking for, the two aspects of the variance is the lot frontage and the width of the lot at the front lot building line, which is 40 feet back from the property line. That's the only specific variance. Both other lots meet the size, and the existing lot does meet the requirement. My only guidance would be that the planning department made a point to make specific comments regarding the type of neighborhood and the concerns that they have. And I would put a great deal of weight into that, as Sean McGuire knows what he's talking about and has had a lot of experience in planning issues. And I believe that he's made some pretty reasonable comments in that statement.
Jim, if I could just add one other comment.
Yes, please, Michael.
I don't know if the applicant has certainly got apparently a very nice family, and no one is saying different, but they need to understand that it's not about what their plans are. It's about the property. If in fact the board granted this use variance, okay, and God forbid they had an accident or, moved away or whatever, the variance still stands. In other words, that your buyer or your estate seller, whoever bought the property would have the use of the variance. So we have no indication of if that situation occurred or you decided to sell, what that property would be. So that's why when we say to you that what the board considers is the property, not so much, we try to accommodate the needs of the owners and the applicant, but it's also, our primary focus is on the applicant and on the property. When we issue a use variance, that runs with the land, not a use variance, but also the area variance. If we approve this minor subdivision situation, there's no guarantee that, you're going to be able to do the house situation if in fact you're no longer the owner. That's what our concern is. So we have sympathy for you concerning your health issues and that type of thing, but that's not the deciding factor for the board. The board has to look at the property issues. That's what we have to look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any further comments, pearls of wisdom? Anyone want to offer at this point in time before we consider a motion?
Chairman, I just had a quick point.
Please.
For Mike, Gary, could be for Joe or Don. I have a little bit of concern about like a precedent that this might set in this area. I don't know if that's a concern that's justified or not. If anybody can, it's just an open-ended kind of question or concern. Can anybody talk to the precedent that this might set?
Yeah, if you look at the words from the letter from the planning department, that they obviously voiced that concern, that this is an old time neighborhood and that allowing this would open up a variety of other lots in the immediate neighborhood for this similar relief.
If I could just add, but there's already been a variety of exceptions made in the immediate vicinity. So I'm not sure how this is different than what's already.
Well, it also, you have a street that certainly is busier than most. And that's the other issue the board has to look at. And that's not to say, Victor, that if the board denies you tonight, and I don't know what the board will do yet, if the board does deny you and you want to come back with an amended plan later on when you're ready to go forward, you certainly have a right to do that.
Mr. Dibble, I'll give you the last words. Do you have anything else to add? Or Alan or Paul?
We just wanted to just mention briefly that while it is true that Ted points out there are prior keyhole lots in the community, certainly if you take a look at those keyhole examples, the vast majority of them are all off on very low traffic side streets and further in the neighborhood, and are just not comparable to the traffic intensity that we have on Osborne. And then finally, I'd echo Mr. Gary just briefly that until we have a specified plan that the applicant has worked out of exactly what they want, it's kind of unfair to ask for the variance at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
I have a question for.
Well, okay, wait, Kirk, you have a question?
I have a question for council. So this is a area variance then?
Yes, because it won't comply with the minimum road frontage, okay? And the width of the lot at the building frontage, okay? That's what the two issues. Yep.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Someone else was talking.
This is David. I was just wondering if you have no intentions of doing anything now, why don't you withdraw it and then resubmit down the road when you do have actual, you don't want to go through the expense of all the plans, but when you have a desire, okay, I'm ready to do it and I want to do it within the next 6 months. So if you have no plans at all now that you want to do it, you're just getting this variance and to have in your pocket knowing you can do it.
Well,
Victor, I just want to just jump in here for one quick second. and correct, and I need your advice on this. The only thing we're not certain on totally is the house design. This is still going to be a single family residence on the frontage that we're asking to have on Osborne Road. So nothing else would be different than the house design will be smaller than we did show because it was just an artist rendering. And if we were successful getting a variance, we're still looking at probably nearly a couple of years to get through the subdivision process. So that's why we're starting today. It's not like if we get a variance approved tonight, then we're maybe not going to do nothing. It'll take at least a year to two or more to go through the subdivision process to create, to get through that, and then ultimately create the lots by deed and so forth. So it'll be quite a long time to get to the end result. But
All right.
to come back with a different plan, I mean, I'm not sure what the board is asking for. I mean, are you talking different house plan? Because it's still a house, no matter how you look at it. It's going to be smaller than we showing tonight, but it's still inadequate frontage for a single family home.
And again,
Right.
we started, my personal prognosis, it was a lot worse than it's turning out to be right now. So that, and knowing that it was going to be a years long process, it's why we started. Today I've worked very hard to try to recover from this injury as best I could. So I don't know exactly what the timeline's going to be. And I also don't know how long it's going to take to go through this. So.
Well, not to belabor this discussion, I'll just ask one question and then we'll move to a vote. Was there any consideration given to having the driveway on the west side of the property?
There's really not enough access between our house at 2 Loudon Parkway and the house at 4 Loudon Parkway. There's just not enough. The property lines are too close together between the land.
Yeah, it would be a lot less frontage, Mr. Campbell, if we propose that, and then we do have to have a setback from the house to a property line there. So we need 10 foot there. So we would be it would be extremely limited. We wouldn't be able to squeeze the driveway in correctly or get our utilities out to Osborne Road.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm no planner or architect, but couldn't it just be an extension of the existing driveway on the front house?
No, because we would have to create.
Okay, everybody's shaking their head. No, forget I asked the question.
No,
Okay,
good question, but we couldn't do that because we have to create a property line there. And in doing so, we have to stay 10 feet away from the house. So we would be.
Yeah, for another variance.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Isn't this job fun?
Okay.
All right, look, I'm going to make the motion that we deny the request, and then we'll see how the vote goes. Based on the conclusions by the planning department that this is not really an appropriate way to deal with these lots and the area of Osborne Road. So I'll make the motion to deny the request for the variance. Is there a second? If there's no second, the motion dies. Crickets. Okay, then if there's no second motion, someone else please make a motion and we'll debate it.
Yeah, I guess my main concern, Chairman, is back to my precedent concern. It's really 100% precedent about can this be done more broadly in these neighborhoods where you have some quieter sort of side streets. But that neighborhood really wasn't laid out as a lot of keyhole lot neighborhoods. My concern is precedent of putting more driveways and keyhole lots on Osborne. I haven't studied that, all up and down Osborne, but it's a busy street, a lot of traffic. And I just don't think it was designed for more keyhole lots, which we could open the door to. If we grant this, other people along Osborne could try and do the same thing. I'm not sure what all those lots look like or if it's even doable. But I just do have that concern.
So having said that, are you seconding the motion to deny?
I was joining you in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion before us tonight, board members. I just want to remind everyone, it takes 4 affirmative or negative votes to approve a motion or deny it. So having said that, Member Viggiani?
Yeah, no, I vote with our motion.
With the motion, thank you. Member Hong?
I'm a little bit kind of torn in between. I do have a sympathy for applicants' health, but I also have the concern about you guys concern about precedents. What, Mr. Chairman? Why don't you have other member vote first?
Okay,
And
so you'll pass.
I'll cast my vote at the very last. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. Member Swanson.
With the motion.
Member Rosenthal.
With the motion.
Okay. Since I made the motion, I am voting with the motion. And now, Mr. Hong, we're back to you.
I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. The motion is approved. The request for the variance and the subdivision hereby denied at this time. And again, I want to thank everyone for their passionate efforts on this particular project, and hopefully there'll be some other form of resolution to this down the road. So, thank you again. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you,
And thank
Chairman.
you, Victor and Denise.
Yep. Have a good night. Thank you.
We have one more item tonight, ladies and gentlemen, this being 25 Woodridge Drive. Take notice that the Town of Colonie Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a televised hearing on the 21st of April, 2021 at 7 p.m. to hear the appeal of James Whalen from the decision of the building department manager for the Town of Colonie denying him a building permit for the premises located at 25 Woodridge Drive, the proposed construction of a 7-foot by 12-foot shed addition in a front yard with a 3-foot side yard setback and a 31-foot front yard setback is not compliant with the 5-foot minimum side yard setback required in a single-family residential zoning district and the prohibition of accessory structures in a front yard as stated in the Town of Colonie Land Use Law, Article 6, Section 190-24, 190-26 sub A, attachment number 3, dimensional table for prior established lots. Upon the request for a variance from the provisions of the code, the Town of Colonie, Chapter 190 permits such construction and use and a secret determination for such appeal. To protect public safety during the state of emergency triggered by COVID-19, this public hearing will take place via video conference. Comments submitted will be read aloud by the chairman during the hearing. Any member of the public wishing to listen and view the meeting, please visit the Town Hall YouTube channel. This is a type 2 seeker requiring no further review, and the notification of publication is duly noted. Is Mr. Whalen here?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Just give us a brief description of what you hope to accomplish, sir.
You said a mouthful there. Okay. Basically, I'm off Albany Shaker Road. I don't know if you're familiar with the area. It's Forest Meadows, built by Chris Foley. We're in phase 1, somewhere around 1988, 1989. We built here. So we've been here for 30 plus years. At the time, I'm located on a corner lot. So at the time, setbacks were 10. We had a 10-foot setback. 2 years after moving in, we built a shed based on that setback. We've been here a long time. My garage is full. My shed is now full. I'm looking for a place to store in the winter my riding mower, give a place in the summer for my wife to do her planting. So we're kind of put a name on this as the she shed. That's not going well with my wife, but it started out as a little bit of a joke. But in the identification that you read, that 31 foot is not correct. That 31 foot is still 35 off the road. We are building. If you're looking at the plans of the shed that were submitted, the shed foul is parallel and is directly behind the existing shed.
James, may I show him while you're speaking, or do you want me to wait?
Oh, you can show me.
Okay.
You can put it up.
You can show them. Go ahead. While I'm speaking, that's fine. You can put that up there. That way I can correct a couple things. That's the backyard. That's a roof over the deck. I built that deck and roof last year myself. Actually 2 years ago. It was a 2-year project. And in the background, you can see the shed in the breezeway. And behind that shed, I have in that tree line behind that shed, I have an existing slab. So the intention is to build a gable roof just below the gable roof off the back of that shed. That's the proposed area. And from the back of that shed to my fence line, it's 10 feet. Code lets me build up to 5 feet off because your regulations, your code has changed over the years. You're now allowed a 5-foot setback. So 5 foot just won't give me the room that I need. I need to go 6 foot. So this whole variance, this appeal is so that I can build an extra foot and on the footprint. And when I look at a footprint, to me, the footprint is, in looking at this picture, it's where the columns will be on that slab. And if you look below the column, you'll see 3 foot. That's the reason why this was rejected by the town, because it was not 5 foot. So basically, I'm backing up on and resubmit and rework the plans with Joe at the town, so that footprint, those columns are now at 6 foot and now not at 7 foot. So I want to build the columns within 4 foot of the property line instead of 5 foot by code. I'm asking for that extra foot. Now, there will be a 1 foot overhang on that gable roof as shown in those drawings, but everything I'm building there is directly within my 6 foot fence. So, and it's built, it will be built the same way the roof was over the deck. There'll be 10 by 10 cedar columns. The inside will be all wrapped in cedar. And aesthetically, it adds to the house. I'm not putting in a prefab shed. I'm building something structurally to complement the house. And that's where we are. We've been here 30 years, ran out of room. I can't put a riding mower in a garage. Back then garages were 22 by 24. You could barely fit 2 cars in there. So I'm asking for lenience. I'm asking for the variance to not build 5 feet off the back, but to build the extra foot to 6 foot to accommodate what I need to do. It won't be a full enclosure. It'll be a gable roof supported by 2 cedar columns.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Whalen.
Sure.
David Rosenthal, any questions?
I do not have any questions. I think you're just looking for a 2 foot. You're 2 foot short from your side yard setback.
One foot
short on the building profile itself, but the overhang pushes it. Yeah, that extra
to
foot.
2.
Yeah.
Got it. 1. Okay. I have no questions.
Just want to hold up right 1 second here. Just so we're all on the same page. We're asking for a 3 foot variance. That's the closest the town can allow. Nothing can go closer to the property line than 3 feet.
Right.
So that's what we're agreeing on. I've heard a couple of things said about an overhang going to 2 feet. I cannot allow that. That's not the way the code reads, and it's also against the state fire code. So
That's
we
correct.
can give a 3 foot variance, but we cannot have any overhang into that 3 feet.
That's correct. That's why we scaled it back, Joe. You and I, for our discussion, to a 6 foot footprint.
Yep.
With a 1 foot overhang.
Yes.
Puts me within 3 feet of the property line.
That's exactly right. And I think maybe there was just a misstatement before, but that's exactly what Jim said is exactly right. Jim and I talked about this quite a bit, and the 35-foot setback that he mentioned, that was my error. It is 35 feet. We will correct that on the approval.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Whalen. Tracy, any questions?
I don't have any problems with this. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Kirk?
So I'm looking at your sketches here. So this is, there's a roof and how about the siding? It has siding also, correct? So it's an enclosed.
No, it's not. If you look at one of the profiles, if you go back through the pictures, I'll tell you when to stop and show you.
Okay.
Can we back up on one of the pictures?
Yeah.
That one right
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm looking at this one.
Sorry,
If you look
sorry,
if you look
Jim.
at that, let's get back to it.
Sorry, Jim.
That's okay.
My mouse is testy.
Jim, I think you might be noting the stub wall that's noted.
Yeah,
on the
yeah, I'm
plan.
looking at
Okay.
it now.
That
Yeah, okay.
that's going to be a 4 to 5 foot stub wall. That gives me a little privacy from the road. But behind
Okay.
that stub wall, there's still my 6 foot fence.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
Well,
okay,
that stub wall will be dressed. It'll be framed and skirted in cedar, the same as the rest of the envelope up underneath. It'll all be done in cedar, in red cedar.
okay. So is the existing shed and your new shed, there's no like wall in between. It's like an open space between the two. The new one, the existing.
No, the new gable roof will be connected to the back side of that shed.
Right.
I'm just basically stepping it down a foot for aesthetics. I don't want to see a long roof line, gable roof line, 30 foot long. You know, I like the idea of the shed has a breezeway. We're attached to the garage, but I needed a cutoff point, drop it down for aesthetics, and then kick the other roof line out 6 feet.
Okay. So what I'm asking is, you have an existing shed, right?
Yes, I do.
So is this new proposed addition is, it's you can walk from the existing into the new no. Okay. All right. That's what I'm asking. Okay. All right. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirk. Nick?
No questions from me, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Council?
I believe that the application is well thought out, and I admire Joe's work. He's done a nice job over there. The application is minimus as far as I'm concerned, and I have no problem. So
Thank you very much. No, it is a lovely neighborhood. Having driven through it over the weekend, had never been in that neighborhood before. It's a very nice neighborhood, Jim. So,
thank you. I mean, it's not.
Having said that, would someone like to make the motion to approve the variance request?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve it.
Thank you. Nick has his hand up.
I'll second it.
That's a second. Okay. We'll move to a vote. Member Vigiani?
With the motion.
Member Hong?
With the motion.
Thank you, Member Swanson.
With the motion.
Thank you, Member Rosenthal.
With the motion.
And the chairman votes with the motion. It's hereby unanimously approved.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whalen. Is there any further business to come before the board tonight? Kim, you want to remind us when our next meeting is?
Our next meeting is May 2nd.
Jim, let's
be where?
Hello, Jim.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, and then we'll go to CLEs. And it will be in town hall. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, Town Hall, May 5th.
Thank
This
you.
is our last Zoom meeting.
Michael
I'm not
has
going to
some
miss
good
that.
news
I'm not.
regarding our CLE training.
Yes, I just wanted to talk to everybody to let them know that we're setting up our continuing legal education this year through the Planning Association. The town is a member, and they will be able to conduct the 4 hours. They can do it online with you. They can they do live lectures. They have recorded material. The only thing we need to do is to get them your email address and your telephone number, and they will communicate with you, and you'll be able to do all of your CLE at your leisure from your home computer. And they will then file back with the town the certificates that you have completed your CLE situation at that time, and they will do it for the planning board, and they'll do it for the sign board as well. So with the loss of Rebecca Kennedy and really the lecture circuit, this was a nice way to do it. And Paula and Mike are are pleased that the Planning Association will take this on. At no additional cost to the town. So we do pay the dues as a.
So Kim, you have
So they'll
everyone's,
notify us?
you
somebody
have
will
everyone's
notify us to the
information,
town?
right, Kim?
What's that?
You have everyone's information, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Contact information and such? Yes.
If you
Good.
can give me, Kim, a email or whatever, that with a list of everybody and all their contact information, I'll forward it to the planning department and they will start the process getting a hold of the board members.
Sounds good.
Great.
Great. Thank you.
thank you then. Thank you, everybody, for your patience tonight. And we'll see you all in person.
We need to close
In
the
May.
meeting.
We need a
Jim.
motion to
Oh,
close.
motion to adjourn. Oh, thank you. I'm over. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, Nick made the motion, Tracy seconded it. All those in favor say aye.
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 We are hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Good night,
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you, Tim.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.